My name is Siobhan, and I am the host of Working Wonders, a SCRIP-J vlog series where we will be chatting with leading persons of interest as they delve into their personal and professional lives, sharing with us interesting nuggets that we hope will inspire and motivate you to make positive changes in your lives as well as in the communities where you reside. Today, we will be chatting with Elena Villafana-Sylvester, CEO at Foundation for Enhancement and Enrichment of Life. Thank you, Elena, first of all, for joining us today. And I just want to get right into it. How did your journey begin in getting involved with the foundation to now becoming CEO of the organization?
So I joined FEEL in May 2010. I had recently returned home from living in Jamaica. At the time, I was working as Scotiabank in Jamaica. And I came back to Trinidad in January, and the earthquake in Haiti had just happened. And I made contact with United Way, and I know they were going to do some work, and I asked them, well, how can I help? So I started off doing some volunteer work at United Way, helping them in terms of coordinating the relief efforts for that Trinidad and Tobago was doing to support the persons from Haiti.
Right.
And I worked on that project until about May 2010, and really and truly it's a bit of a sad story. The CEO of FEEL at the time had a massive heart attack, and she died. And I was asked if I would be willing to come to FEEL and see how I could help to support the organization. So I walked into FEEL in May 2010 so that I could lend some support to the organization as it was transitioning out of that shock that it had gone through, because it was something that was very sudden.
Right.
And I have been there since.
Now, we know that the company functions in areas such as poverty alleviation, disaster prevention and recovery, education, right? So it's a lot of different areas that you guys cover. Are there some recent projects that you could probably delve in to a bit for us?
Yeah, the question is which recent projects to start with, because we always seem to have so much going on. But if I could probably just look back over, let's just say, the last quarter, what FEEL has been focusing on in terms of projects have been at least something that touches each one of those areas in which we work.
Right.
So the areas we said were poverty alleviation, education and capacity building, medical support, and disaster relief and prevention. Under medical support, we recently, as in just a week ago, completed training for our team members as well as volunteers from rural communities across Trinidad who will assist persons who are in need of a wheelchair. So we partnered with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They actually gave FEEL a donation of approximately 400 mobility devices, including wheelchairs and walkers, special gel cushions, etc. And we will now be able to, well, we've been certified before, but this is a new type of wheelchair that we've been introduced to, and we are going to be measuring and fitting persons for these wheelchairs. Now, one of the challenges that we have discovered over the years, for the last 20 years or so, that FEEL has been distributing wheelchairs, is that even though we have started probably in about 2012 to measure and fit individuals for wheelchairs, a big challenge is that individuals from rural communities have to pay so much money to come to FEEL in order to be measured for their wheelchair. So if you live in Cedros, the transportation cost for you to get to FEEL, it might cost them probably about $500 or more to hire a taxi to bring them to FEEL in order to be measured for the wheelchair. And that has been a very onerous and trying process for many of the individuals, because we focus on assisting individuals who otherwise cannot afford to purchase the item. So if that is our main focus, then it's difficult to ask them to find extra funds.
Yeah.
And these mobility devices are so important for them, for their everyday life. So we focused on training individuals across Trinidad who will be able to go to these people's homes and measure them. So it reduces that burden that they would feel in needing to come up to feel in Laventille. It also addresses another situation where we have, in that there's so many shut-ins that we have, or individuals that you'd be surprised at the number of individuals in Trinidad and Tobago that tell us that they do not have a family member that's nearby that could help them. So when we have a conversation with them, they complete an application form firstly, they send that into field, and then once that application is approved, we call them and tell them, okay, you can come in and be measured for your wheelchair on this date and at this time. And they don't have someone that they can call on. They don't have a neighbor, a friend. They are just existing by themselves. And so that removes that burden of them needing to find someone as well who can support them in that way. So we started the process in terms of measuring and fitting persons for wheelchairs. As part of the training process, which took place over 1 week, we measured about 30 individuals. And then the new part of this wheelchair training as well is that we then build the wheelchair to suit the needs of the individual, depending on the length of their torso and depending on the length of their legs, etc. And so we have a team of clinicians and a team of technicians. So the clinicians do the measurement assessment and the technicians build the chair based on the measurements that the clinicians have found. But the bigger question is, why do you even need to measure someone for a wheelchair? And a lot of people ask that, why can't you just give me a wheelchair? You know, I would just pass by field and collect a wheelchair. And the reason is that if a wheelchair is not properly fitted, then an individual you can actually do more harm than good. An individual can actually be damaged by an improper fitted wheelchair. They can end up with sores, they can end up with scoliosis. So you will see pictures of individuals as part of our training, of individuals who are leaning to the left or to the right. They can't sit up straight, or, you know, they have large sores on different parts of their bodies. And part of the problem with that is that they are using a device that is not suited to their body type, to their structure type. So that's why it's important. So that is part of medical support. We've also been focusing in getting schools ready, and I'm excited about wheelchairs, but I'm really excited about getting schools ready for the start of the new school term, because education I see as the foundation of everything that we do. That if we really want to make a fundamental change in what is happening in this country, we need to do that in education. And so we have been working with schools to try and get them ready. So over the last couple of weeks, Field has been distributing paint to schools across Trinidad and Tobago. And we brought in approximately 2,000 gallons of paint. And then the schools wrote to us and told us what quantity of paint they needed, if they needed 50 gallons, 250 gallons, whatever quantity they needed. We created a list of that, and then we partnered with the Tunapuna Corporation, who very kindly allowed the schools to go to their location to fill the paint in buckets, and the schools went to that location, so to the highway location for the Tunapuna Corporation in Macoya, and they filled their buckets with paint. So now we have approximately 42 schools that are really just waiting to get painted. But let me tell you what is the beauty of that project. It's not about Field giving the paint. It's not about getting the schools ready. It's about building that sense of community. Because in order to get that done, it's not about Field saying, oh, I am going to come in and I am going to paint your school. The schools have actually come together, and with families that, the families who live in these community, individuals who have attended the school, past pupils, and they're saying, listen, I see that Field has paint. If I get paint, I can paint my daughter's classroom, or I can. So it's about all of us working together. And that is why I love it so much, because it's moving us, it's transitioning us from that sense that someone else has to take responsibility for the changes that we want to see happen, and I can be part of the solution. So if the school needs an upgrade and the school is looking dingy, I can get a paintbrush and I can help,
Correct.
and the paint is just the supporting mechanism. So I'm just giving that support to you, but you're really giving of your time to really make your child's school better, to create a friendlier environment. We've also brought in some furniture as well for schools. So the schools indicated some schools wanted to do a library. There's schools in Trinidad that have no library. I mean, that boggles my mind. So we brought in bookshelves, and so they're going to have a school library for the first time. And so, of course, my next big challenge is, and I'm going to throw that out to the national communities, I need books. I need books to put in these libraries. I need storybooks. You have 2 or 3 storybooks at home because your child is now 10 years old and they're not going to read the same books that they read when they were 5, and donate those books to us, and we're going to pass it on to the schools so that all the children everywhere can experience the joy of reading. And that to me is a fantastic thing, because they grow so much when they can read, and when you're literate, and when you can your imagination, you could be transported into another world because you've read something, and you learn so much from reading, and I want to be part of giving that gift to every child. So that's education. And then when we talk about poverty alleviation, it's something that is near and dear to us at Field, because one of our biggest challenges is changing that discussion, that conversation that we have. So many of us, we say it and we're like, why don't they go and get a job? Or why, they are, it's their fault that
Right.
they are in the situation that they're in. And we have worked with so many different individuals from so many different communities. And when you hear their stories, you get a sense and a recognition of how ignorant you are, of how much you do not understand what really has happened with this individual, and that you need to take a step back and realize that you really had a wonderful life and everything came easy for you, and there are people that have not had that opportunity. And so our program has focused on basic things. Firstly, how do we help individuals feed themselves, because that is a big challenge. You would be surprised, over the July-August vacation, for families that are struggling on a regular day, on a regular Monday to Friday, they're struggling. Up comes July and August vacation, and children are at home, and there's no school feeding, and the income of the parents has not changed, and they're wondering, how am I feeding these children? And the cupboards are empty, and kids are frustrated, and the parents are unhappy. How can we intervene in those homes and just do our part to change that conversation that is happening in the home? And so, through approximately 130 civil society organizations with whom we partner, we give them donations of items that they can use to help to support those families.
Right.
So it's basic items such as rice, beans, bar soap, clothing, toothbrushes, all those things that we will take for granted every day, because we can just walk into our house and open the cupboard and there's something there. First aid, there are families that don't have that. And we, through our network of civil society organizations, we're able to change that narrative for them, and hopefully they can prepare a meal for themselves and for their children. And on Friday, I was speaking to a young lady who came into Field, and she said to me, I'm a caterer, and I have seen the work that Field is doing, and I want to know, how can I help you? And I said, oh my God, this is your godsend. This is so wonderful, because we welcome individuals like that. And I said, listen, so we get in this white rice. It comes in from Guyana, and we give it out to families. We distribute the rice to families. But so many times the feedback that we get from families, because we call them, did you, have you received rice? Have you received this?
Right.
It's not just like send it and forget them. Oh, we've
Yeah.
done our part, we've given it to you. We like to get feedback from them. And people tell us, well, I don't know how to cook this white rice, or I only got white rice again. And I realize that we need to help them even in that sphere, because there's so many things you can do with rice. And she said, as a caterer, there are, so many different meals and menus that she could come up with to actually make this rice more effective for the families. So she came to the office and she said, I'm going to make something with this rice, and I'm going to bring a sample, and it's something that you've never eaten with rice. And she brought something called vegetable Manchurian. So I look at it and I go, okay, it's vegetable Manchurian, it's a bowl, and she's telling me it's rice. So I'm like, okay, I'm kind of skeptical. What is this? And she really took the rice, made it into a bowl, incorporated vegetables, and she said you can incorporate meat into it as well, and you can bake or fry this bowl. And I sampled it and I'm like, oh my God, this is rice? And she's yes. So look, I've already come up with about 3 menus for you of different things people can make with rice. And I said, oh my God, we need to tell people this. I can't believe that that you can use this in such a variety of ways, and we can create meals for a family of 4 for under $25. Insane. I was like, oh my God, I cannot imagine, like, when we get on the ground and we start to tell people that, how much that is going to help a family, because you're limited in choices and information, and now you're going to have ideas and choices that you can make, and it's not going to be, oh my God, rice again. It's going to be, oh, what am I going to make today with the rice? And we could change that conversation. So that excites me, and I hope that we will start doing that over the next couple of weeks, and exposing people to that information, so that they just have options. So we're talking about basic food stuff in poverty alleviation. We're talking about basic clothing, supplies, but school is going to reopen, right? And so many families cannot afford to buy school books for their children, and it's a real challenge in getting prepared for schools. So that is something that we look at as well. If even when we talk about it just being rice, but if you have a meal that you can afford to prepare, then that gives you an option, and I could save some money here from my food budget, and I can put that money towards purchasing books, or buying a book bag and pencils and stationery and so for my family. And all we're really trying to do is to do our part to help to educate and inform people that they have options and you have choices, and reduce that kind of burden that they feel on a day-to-day basis. So that leaves me with what now? That leaves me with disaster prevention and recovery. So in terms of disaster prevention and recovery, you may recall that last year, Field did a lot of work in that sphere with regard to helping communities that were affected by the flooding that took place.
Right, that would have been the flood in October 2018, right?
Yes, right. Exactly. October 22nd, to be exact. I remember it very well. So what we did was we looked at what we did last year, and in terms of our plan at the end of the year, in December 2018, we looked back at the work that we did from October coming straight up to December. And in planning for 2019, we said, okay, what were our learnings from 2018 and what is it that we need to do differently? Now, the interesting thing about disaster is that I think that for many households in Trinidad and Tobago, we think about disaster as only happening with the rainy season. Right. And at Field, we understand that a disaster can happen at any time, and it can come in different forms. And so how do we ensure that we are prepared for that, and we are not just prepared for a single type of event that might happen? So when we looked at what transpired in 2018, we were very fortunate in that we were able to reach out to international partners
Right.
and ask them to help us to help the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we brought in donations, a lot of donations that went out to households that were affected. So I think between October and December, Phil brought in probably about 20 containers, 40-foot containers of supplies that
Wow.
were distributed to households. So we're talking about beds, bedding, foodstuff, clothing, different types of furniture. I mean, virtually anything that you can imagine. But when we look back at that, how we were able to intervene, apart from our disaster stock that we had prepared in 2018, our disaster stock that we would have prepared at the start of 2018 really included disaster blankets and it included brand new clothing. So we
Right.
figured, okay, so here are two of the things that people need immediately as a disaster happens. And we looked back at that and we said, look at what we had to do when the disaster happened at the end of 2018. And what would have happened in Trinidad if we didn't have the opportunity to bring in those containers as quickly as we did. So our conversation in the office was around how can we plan better? Because there might be an event that happens that will not afford us the possibility of responding the way in which we responded in 2018. And that kind of changed our conversation.
Right.
And our planning changed to suit that. So our disaster stock has expanded to include generators. Not a lot of generators, so don't get excited, but at least
Okay.
it's a start. It's about
Yeah.
30 or so generators. Water canisters, so we have these 5-gallon buckets that, well, they're not buckets, it's sealed containers with a cover,
Okay.
so that persons can fill water. One of the things that we're looking at is, can we bring in a device or water bottles that actually we learned were used in Haiti that will allow you to fill any type of water in it and it will actually purify the water and make it potable. So that is
Okay.
that's something that we are continuing to look at, and we'd love a partner that can help us with that. And making sure that the clothing is ready in a certain type, in a certain way. So one of the things, for example, that happened after the flooding took place is that a lot of individuals wanted to donate clothing to Phil, but clothing that you're giving to persons at a time of disaster needs to be properly laundered, folded, divided by size. We can't just take a whole, old garbage bag of clothing and give it to them. Remember, they do not have facilities where they can wash and dry clothes. So we need to have ready to wear, so to speak, items. And we were fortunate in that we had that in our disaster stock, but we had it in our disaster stock in a certain quantity, not recognizing how important it was until the regional corporations reached out to us. And when we gave that first set to Tunapuna, we had every corporation knocking on our door saying to us, listen, can we get some of those supplies as well? Because when everything is covered in mud and flooded out and wet and rain is still falling, you need to have clothes to be able to put on. Many persons left and went to shelters with just what they were sleeping in the night before. And that was it. So it helped us. It was a good learning experience. I'm sorry that we had to go through that in order to learn so much, but it was a good learning experience for us, and it helped us to plan so that we have a different type of disaster stock. But I think that the other learning that came from that is the change in the conversation that we should have with individuals and families now of how should you prepare for a disaster. So we learn things like you should keep your, probably have, your documents in a sealed bag, but you need to have clothes in a sealed bag as well. So there are so many things that families can learn from in terms of how they plan. Make sure that you have water containers. Make sure that you have sealed containers that you have your documents in. make sure that you have your family with a plan, so that if something happens, an event happens, your family knows where to gather and you can all be in touch.
Right.
I think there were a lot of learnings that came out of what happened last year, that all of us should, in our own homes, sit back and say, how can I plan should such an event happen
Right.
in my household, or any event, any type of disaster. And what we found happening in schools now, schools are asking children to bring in disaster kits. So in schools now, people, the teachers and in the class is saying to children, bring in a top and have it in a sealed bag, and so that you can have a change of clothing should something happen and you need to stay in the school. And those were some of the things that came out of what happened last year.
That's a really good initiative. I didn't even realize that was happening, that, as you said, they're preparing them not just at home, but you want them to be prepared where they also spend most of their day, which is in school.
Exactly. So, and anything can happen at any time, and we need to recognize that, so that all of us need to change the way in which we view a disaster and how we get our households prepared. So we're preparing from a larger perspective. We are working with the regional corporations, but we also work with schools, and we have the opportunity to have those types of conversations with the principals, so that they can implement plans as well with them. So I'm coming back to the regional corporations. So we're again working with them this year, and we have already identified the types of items that we're going to get to the corporations, so that they will be able to respond. Because really and truly, the corporation should be the first responders. But apart from that, I spoke earlier about our network that we use for poverty alleviation. So this is what I love about the field model. That network that we have, it's not just about helping a family in times of need. We also have the opportunity. So we spoke about helping them in terms of giving out food stuff and clothing that they could give to families, but we also scale them up to respond in times of a disaster. So when the events happened last year in 2018, we already had all of our community groups already received a disaster stock from field. So they had clothing, blankets, and food stuff that they could immediately respond in their communities with, and they were able to do that. And now that we know how important that is, we have to ensure at field that we continue to provide that support to our civil society members, so that they can continue to respond to events that happen. The other important learning from that is that you cannot have disaster stock or have disaster preparations only happening at one place. Because when you think about it, if for some reason field was flooded out, where would everybody go to get items? So by us sharing and continuing to work with all these partners that we have and preparing them, then we are better able to help individuals who are affected across the country. So those are just a few of the projects we're working on currently.
So I know you said that you guys collaborate with a lot of different civil society organizations, right? So what about persons who, even after seeing this or hear about field, if they as individuals would like to reach out for assistance, is that also possible?
Yes, it is. So under the same disaster umbrella, we have a program that's called our Silent Emergency Program, where individuals on a one-on-one basis could apply to field for assistance. So they complete something called a field assessment form, and they have to tell us what is their situation. Now, how that program really works is we depend on our network as well to confirm that an event has happened. So when we talk about how we work in communities and even with government, the wider community, if you have a fire at your home, you get a letter from fire services that is addressed to field, and they tell us, okay, this event happened at this home.
Right.
If your house has been affected by flooding or house collapse, then you will get a letter from the regional corporation that says that a flooding event took place on this street and this household was affected, and they get a letter addressed to field.
Okay.
In terms of how you can get assistance from your community, even when you apply to field as an individual, we reach out, we try to do research, and we will actually reach out into communities and we will ask our community partners, okay, listen, we've gotten an application from this individual who lives on this street. Can you go and visit them? And can you tell us what the situation is so that we can work we can work together in terms of trying to help that household. So I think that this is a difference in terms of our approach to looking at how we really impact and assist an individual in need. Assistance cannot be that they feel my family is hungry and can you give me a food hamper?
Right.
Because that food hamper is going to last you 1 month or 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks' time, they feel my family is hungry. Can I get another food hamper? And that's not really helping anyone or changing your circumstances. So what we ask our community groups to do is to really incorporate the assistance that they give. So even when we talk about poverty alleviation, it's poverty alleviation with conditions. And the condition centers around what can I do? What support do you need to really enhance your life? So if we stick to what our mandate is, then really and truly we want to move you from the position that you're in today and put you on a path of self-sustainability where you can, where you can support yourself and your family. So the conversation has to be with the family or with the individual is, what type of support do you need? Is it retooling? Is it that there's a literacy problem and you need to learn to read and write? Is it that children are not in school and we need to ensure that the children go to school? Is it that you are sickly and you need some support in that way and you need a mobility device to help you get around? And that is the importance of our relationship with civil society. So our civil society partners will visit the individuals and have a conversation with them. And then they're able to determine the type of assistance that they need. And then we can have an intervention strategy. And they will continue to work with a family for a period of time, let's say 6 months initially, to try and help them so that we can do that transition, right? We can really enhance and enrich their lives and move them from the point that they are at and see how we could transition them to, another phase of their life. But we have to be realistic about what's happening in our country. And I know that there's so many individuals today that face unemployment, and that is a situation that is unplanned for them, and it's a difficult place for a family to transition out of when an economy is shrinking. So part of the work that we do and part of the efforts that we have as well is in terms of how do we encourage individuals to start micro enterprises. So our most recent program has been with having conversations with individuals about how can we help you start that small business that you really, I'm saying small business, but I really should say that micro enterprise that you want to start.
Right.
How can we help you? And there are different ways in which we can help. So we've had persons approach us because they want to start a daycare center and they may need specific types of supplies in order to start that daycare center, maybe bouncers, maybe some cribs, etc., that they can use to get up and running. We've had individuals approach us who have a sewing skill and they have not been using it, and now that they no longer have the job that they had, so now that they're unemployed, they want to start doing something with their skill, and we can assist them by providing them with a sewing machine or a serger to get them started. We have individuals who tell us, listen, I'm a great baker and I want to start doing cakes, and we've been able to provide them with things like cake pans and cupcake tins and etc. to help them get their dream started. And as much as we are able to help in those ways, that's really the direction in which I would like to see us go, in terms of when we start working and talking to individuals, really getting to the meat of what are the possible solutions to your current circumstance. And the solution is not going to be the same for everyone, because there's so many different circumstances that exist. But there are some fundamentals that we need to address. We need to ensure that your children stay in school and support you in that way, getting them in school. We need to ensure that your family has food to eat. And so the conversation with them is not an either or. And this is something that I think it's important for us to understand. We are going to talk to you about how we transition you, but while we are having those discussions, we will still provide you with food stuff and clothing and cleaning supplies and those types of items, whilst we work with you to, get you on that path.
Develop the skills necessary
Exactly.
for the long-term vision.
For the long-term vision. And Field cannot do this alone. I mean, I spoke about our civil society partners. I mean, the only way, the team at Field is a team of 4, okay? It's 3 team members and myself. The only reason that we get these things done is because of our relationship with the wider community. From corporate Trinidad and Tobago and individuals that give Field donations. I mean, that relationship is important. I can have all these grandiose plans and ideas, and if we do not get that financial support, it will come to naught, because we won't be able to implement or execute anything. So that is important. Our civil society partners are important because they're the ones on the ground. They're like, I guess, our army, the Field army, the extended army of Field that can actually go into communities. So even when we read about situations that happen in communities, a family's been affected in a certain way, we have a partner in that community that we can call and we could say, could you go and visit this home in Moruga? Could you go and visit this home in Cedros? Could you go and visit this home in Tobago? That is why we have our network, so that we can all work together to make the changes that we want to see, to effect the changes that we want to see. So, and it's about government, even providing information in terms of courses that are available. Did you see the list of courses from YTEP that are available, so that in our community, so that you can go and do that, or you can send your children to do it. So it's about how all of us work together in society. I spoke about the individual that reached out to us because she has a particular skill in cooking. There are people that reach out to us and say, Elena, can I volunteer? What help do you need? I mean, there's a gentleman who's an IT specialist who helped us to coordinate the distribution of paint. So I said that we have a team of 3, right? And we're distributing paint at the Chinapuna Corporation. And someone volunteered his time to go to the Chinapuna Corporation to assist us to make sure the schools came, they got the colors that they wanted, they got the quantities that they wanted. It's all of us working together that really, really makes a difference. I mean, we're just, I guess, the conduit through which these things are happening, but we cannot get it done, not with our small team. Not if we do not have interested parties who are members of the public who are even giving us donations. So we have individuals participate or can donate to Field through the Field 1000 Club. And we've asked individuals, listen, whatever you can donate, could you make a financial contribution to us? And that pool of funding that comes from individuals and corporate, we pool that together to do all this work that I am telling you is happening. So field cannot do it alone. We cannot do it without the assistance of all those different areas or from all those different groups. That's the only way that we're all going to make a difference.
So, what do you see the future vision as for field within Trinidad and Tobago, extending outside of Trinidad and Tobago? Where do you see field going from here?
It is so interesting that you should ask that, because we have had civil society organizations from other parts of the Caribbean reach out to us and ask us, how are you doing what you do? Can you share your plans and your models with us? And we're always happy to share what we do. We have a plan for almost everything documented, and we're happy to share those documents with other civil society organizations. We see ourselves as working as an umbrella civil society organization. That's the work that we do to effect change within Trinidad and Tobago. So right now, our focus continues to be in Trinidad and Tobago, because we still feel that there's so much that needs to be done.
Right.
But if I can focus on one area in particular that I would really like to see a lot more resources go into, and even in terms of our resources at field, and it has to do with that conversation about education. I think that there are too many families in which we have identified that there are challenges with education. There are too many adults that are walking around that are illiterate. There are really too many children that are within the school system and they cannot read and write. And I'm talking at the secondary school level, at the primary school level, and those things worry me. It is something that I would like to see a lot more resources focused on, and I would really like to see change, because when you have an educated population, then people can make better decisions. We talk about why did they do that, or why did they choose to do this, and really and truly it's because they're uninformed, and their only reference points are the actual neighbors and friends. And if everybody that is around you is doing the same thing, then what you are doing seems to be the norm and is acceptable, because everybody around you. So if I live in a community and I am pregnant at 15, and my friend is pregnant at 15, and the neighbor is pregnant at 15, and the 16-year-old is on her second child, then that is acceptable, because it is what I'm seeing. And my mother was probably pregnant at 15. But we need to expose persons to more information and new ideas, and that is the importance. So when I told you about us building libraries and talking to individuals so that we can help people make better choices, you cannot make choices if you're uninformed. You really just cannot. And that is why education for me is the key. And so I will want to spend a lot more time thinking about what field can do differently so that we can intervene in that sphere. I'm not challenging the Ministry of Education, just what we can do on our part to really make a difference, so that there are less individuals that are reaching to adulthood without being able to read and write.
So you put a lot of emphasis on education. I know you hold that dear to your heart, that this is the key to taking care of our future. So I would like to know, what advice do you have for our upcoming generation? If you had to just leave them with one, thought-provoking something, what would you tell them?
I think that's a real challenge. Eric Williams said that the future of our nation is in your school bag, and your future is in your school bag.
Mhm.
You have to get yourself educated. You have to ensure that you go to school.
Right.
School is the foundation of everything.
Mhm.
And take advantage of the opportunity that you have
Mhm.
to go to school and the access that you have to education, and do not stray off that path from ensuring that you take advantage of that opportunity.
So, Elena, you have put so much emphasis on the topic of education. So, my question to you is, what is your hope for the younger generation?
I would really like to see us change the conversation
Mhm.
in terms of where responsibility lies. And I am talking about that from the toddler
Mhm.
straight up to the grandmother,
Mhm.
and recognizing that each of us has a role to play
Mhm.
in terms of the future that we want for ourselves, our family, our community, and our country. So, when I talk about education in particular, education cannot become the responsibility only of a Ministry of Education or of a school teacher. Education is the responsibility of all of us. And therefore, we have to look for avenues
Mhm.
to ensure that we are continuously learning and growing as individuals so that we can create a better Trinidad and Tobago, the type of Trinidad and Tobago that we all want to live in.
Right.
You know, we talk so much about the crime situation, and it's almost as if it's those people are creating crime and it's those bad behaved ones that are perpetrating the crime, and it is someone else's responsibility to fix this problem. But we can all begin to fix the problem today. We can all begin to fix the problem today if we change the conversations we have to a sense where we each individually take responsibility for ourselves and our actions, and do the types of things that are necessary for us to grow as a people. Positive things, positive changes in our society and our community. And it could come back down to things as simple as stop littering, clean up your surroundings in your household, ensure that your children reach to school on time, ensure that your children go to school. Stop making excuses for why you are late at work, or why the children are late at school, or why they cannot do this, or why someone else cannot do that. Stop making excuses for yourself, as it is someone else's fault that I am in the predicament that I am in, and stop complaining and start looking for solutions. I know that that might be difficult for a lot of us to hear, because we say like, oh yeah, you can talk about solutions because everything is okay with you. Everything is not okay with anyone. Everyone has a problem in some shape or form, but we cannot focus on the problem. We have to identify the solution and then work at how do we implement that solution so that we can get to the place that we want to be. And when I talk about my passion for addressing the situation in education, every parent, every individual, every sister, everybody, brother, auntie, uncle needs to have that same feeling that they can address the situation. So if you can do your part to help paint your child's school, then do it. It's not somebody else's responsibility to do it. It's not the ministry that has to do it. You can help. If you can do your part to ensure that you get together and you cut the grass in the community playing field, it's not the regional corporation that needs to do it. There's no reason that a couple of you as neighbors cannot get together and say, today we're going to cut the grass in the playing field because the grass is overgrown, and then that causes mosquitoes and other vermin. And where the vermin going to come? Not in your own house. So how can I, as an individual, work to change that type of conversation that I've been having all my life in terms of passing the responsibility on to someone else and figure out what I can do for myself and for my community? That's what I hope for.
Well, Elena, I think it's absolutely amazing when foundations such as FEEL get the support necessary to accomplish the type of work that you guys do. So I really hope that you continue to get that support. And before we close, where can persons find you? What platforms can they find you on?
Yes. So our Facebook page is FEEL TANDT, FEEL T and T.
Okay.
Our phone number is 624-7758, and our email is feeltrinidadandtobago@gmail.com, or spelled out. So you can reach us by phone, by email, or visit us on Facebook as well.
Thank you so much for joining us, Elena.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for viewing our SCRIP-J vlog series, Working Wonders. Now, if you found this content to be interesting and of value, feel free to like, comment, and share, because we would love to have your feedback. And don't forget to look out for our next vlog, and stay connected with us via social media or even at our website, scripj.com. You can see the link in our post description. And remember, continue doing the wonderful work that you do. Bye!